everybody. It is 4:36 p.m. Central Time on Sunday, November 6th, 2016. What a day today's turned out to be on many levels around the world, guys. I'm not even going to be commenting on any politics today, but wow. Let's just get into it. Let's look at the earthquakes that struck today. Hope you guys are doing good in chat. You know, forgive me for bombing out today, but, you know, I don't know. Anyways, let's look at it. Okay, so check it out over here in Japan. Around Hokkaido, north of Hokkaido, just south of Hokkaido, a very deep earthquake, 488 kilometers deep down below. That, I guess technically that's the Kuril Islands going up into Russia, but it's just north of Hokkaido. Anytime we see deep earthquakes up across Japan, North Japan, within a few days, we normally see westward pressure transfer, sometimes west, sometimes southwest, along the edge of their European into Asian craton. So when we talk about the craton overseas, we talk about the area across the Himalayan range, going up as far north as Mongolia, right at this bend, and then going back down through Myanmar. And this takes us right across Nepal. Now let me just tell you a quick story. Going back about 2 years, you guys remember when Nepal got hit with that massive earthquake. Well, in the days leading up to it, there was a deep mid-range 4 and deep 5 that struck pretty much up here in this relatively same location. I want to say it was just south. It was west of Hokkaido, right along the shores of China and Russia. And these deep earthquakes that happen in Japan usually translate out not only with earthquakes nearby the deep earthquake that happens, but far to the west-southwest. So Nepal was struck after we saw deep earthquakes across Japan, North Japan. So if this holds true again, I don't know if it will or not. Again, we don't normally see very many deep earthquakes up this far to the north. We will have to watch again for west-southwest pressure transfer and watch for 1 to 2 magnitudes larger. So 1 magnitude larger is 5.6, 2 magnitudes larger is 6.6, and that would be striking usually to the west by southwest of the deep earthquake location by several thousand kilometers. So where does that put us? Well, it would put us in the middle of our silent zone, which to me is apparent right here in the north part of India, in between South Turkey and all the way down here at the 4.9 near western Sumatra. We follow that fault zone all the way down and around, and the halfway point is relatively right in the middle. That makes sense, right? Halfway point right in the middle? Huh. Okay, halfway point is right here at Afghanistan-India border region. Okay, so watch out. Could go a little bit to the east. If it does, it'll strike in Nepal. So it's just a very small stretch right in the middle here. And we're watching that spot for the next 48 hours off this deep earthquake that just occurred today. Now, you may remember we issued a warning last night for Taiwan, right? The southeast coast of Taiwan, right on land, right? Isn't that what we talked about? Yeah. Okay. Well, southeast coast of Taiwan was finally hit after God knows how long. How long has it been, guys? It was 5 days without any earthquake activity. Then the north part of Japan got hit first, then south part of Japan at Okinawa directly. Okinawa to Taiwan. And that's what we talked about last night and the night before. Okinawa to Taiwan. Now it was struck 5.0, 4.1 down really right on the coast. And I mean interior to the coast in Taiwan. It's been a while since the mainland of Taiwan has been hit. So now it's struck. Now over in Europe, check this out, guys. Look at what happened. I told you last night that by tonight we would be reporting on a new cluster of earthquakes that pressed over from yesterday's 4. See this 4.2 here at the Pakistan-Afghanistan border region? Well, that has now caused a 4 and a swarm of 3s to press out across Europe again. And that happened today down in Turkey and Greece. Take a look at it. Look at all the 3.1s. This is wild. Okay, these 3.1s. 3.1 down at Sicily. 3.1 down at the south portion of Greece, meeting the plate boundary. These are all along the plate boundary pretty much. Okay, see this 4.0? Again, right along the plate boundary. Now we told you last night that we would be topping out today if we saw 3s and 4s develop out across Turkey and Greece this could recombine to equal a new, at least above 4.0 earthquake, and now here we are. So what happens when you add a 4 plus 1, 2, 3, 4 different 3s? Well, it takes 10 3s to equal one 4.0 earthquake, relatively speaking. So when we talk about the addition of earthquakes, it takes 10 3s to equal 1 4, 10 4s to equal 1 5, 10 5s to equal 1 6, and so on. So when we see, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and possibly even 5 if we take on one earthquake that I think did fall off the map, well, that would be a 4.1 equivalent, or 4.05. Actually, 4.05 is really where we would go. So again, we're only looking at basically a 4.1 off of the earthquakes that struck today across Turkey and Greece. Where will the 4.1 strike? Most likely, the 4.1 will strike to the west by northwest from Turkey and Greece. So, take a look at it. What is west by northwest from Turkey and Greece? Well, right here at the center of the screen, our swarm location, which is only being struck today by 2s. All 2s with, I think, 1 3 in there. How many 3s were in here today? Let's take a quick look. We had 1 3.6. That was earlier. And that, again, that 3.6 follows the deep 2.6 that happened yesterday. You guys remember, I told you, deep 2.6 leads to shallow 3.6 to 4.6. So the deep 2.6 yesterday in Romania and the 2.6 down in Turkey, which was upgraded to 2.7, those two deep earthquakes have now resulted in, look what's on either side of the deep earthquakes, guys. 3.6s. 2 of them. 1 on each side. So Romania was struck right here in the middle. In case you don't know where Romania is, it's right here at the bend between the green and the yellow, brownish color there. Okay, that's our height elevation map. There was a 2.6 there. And then down here in Turkey, south of Turkey, right in here, a 2.6 deep yesterday. I did an update on it last night. And I said those 2.6 should cause shallow 3.6 to 4.6, and I was more leaning towards the 3.6 since they were only at 120 kilometers deep as opposed to these other very deep earthquakes like the one up in Japan at 400 and something kilometers deep. Well, again, both sides of the area where the deep earthquake occurred were moved upwards, and shallow, larger movement, 1 magnitude larger, struck. Now we have to add in the 4 that came in. That 4 came rolling in off the 4.2 over here to the east that struck like a day and a half ago. Right there. See the 4.2? I told you guys that would press to the west. It might lose a little momentum, and if anything else struck over here, then that would increase. Well, luckily for Italy, nothing else here struck so far. But that's about to change with this deep earthquake up near Japan. So, ultimately, 4.1 up in Italy by, let's put a 48-hour watch on it at the most, more like 24. So by tomorrow night, I should be reporting on to you that 4s have returned back into Italy. And again, take a look at it. It's topping out at 3. So we're going to go up a magnitude because of this new 4 introduced into the mix. And if anything greater strikes back here, we'll have to immediately issue an alert for South Italy, or Central Italy, for South Europe. And so this deep 4.6, if it causes a shallower 5.6 to 6.6 to strike somewhere east of this 4.2, okay, somewhere east of there, but west of Nepal, well, if we get a 6 in there, that's going to dramatically increase the pressure into Europe. If we get a 5 there, it's still going to increase the pressure. So, hate to be the bearer of bad news again, but there it is, a new deep earthquake, this time directly in the line of fire. There is no doubt about it whether or not it's going to transfer across the plate. It's happened several times in the past. The deep earthquakes in Japan pushing to the west, one of which caused, one time when that happened, it caused the Nepal megaquake. Okay, so again, let's just sum it up. Japan was struck, as expected, north and south. Over here in Europe, as expected, the pressure pressed in off the 4.2, caused a 4 swarm of 3s. It's going to rebuild into a single 4.05 or 4.1 striking back in central Italy. That will then transfer further to the west-northwest, so you'll see new activity after Italy is struck going into tomorrow, and it'll press out across Europe again. What areas are going to be struck? Well, guys, we have to go back to North Europe again. We're going to have to look at the English Channel again, coast of Normandy, for new movement to strike. It might be on that 3 level. 3.1 seems to be the number of the day. Might have to watch for upper 2, lower 3, rare earthquake strike in the English Channel as the pressure is transferring out to the mid-Atlantic ridge. Now let's get in the United States. Check this out, guys. This is really wild. First of all, this morning we saw activity. Look at all the 3.1s. See this? Again, we're back to 3.1. It's like the magic number. Look over in Europe, 3.1s all over the place, and then we got 3.1s here in the U.S. Now, what spots in the U.S. were struck? Fracking. All 3 of these locations here in the Midwest are huge fracking operations. Now, I used to live out here in Colorado, and we got in a big debate with the professors out there in Colorado just this past month and a half when the University of Colorado lead seismologist, Professor Rick Aster, A-S-T-E-R, decided it would be a great idea, out of the blue, I'd never talked to this guy before in my life, decided it would be a great idea to show up on my fundraiser page, my public fundraiser page, and call it a scam and telling people not to donate. Now, the University of Colorado denied that fracking caused earthquakes, guys. Denied. And it led to the deaths of 3 people out in western Colorado at the Colbrand gas system when that massive CO2 sequestration and fracking operation blew sky high and blew all that liquid sand mixed with CO2 out over those people. So Colorado, I take this real serious, and I lived in Denver for several years. So let's just drive home this point to the people at the University of Colorado who denied the relation between fracking and earthquakes. And we'll explain why this got struck. But first things first, let's go ahead and show you a picture. So let's get the coordinates on these earthquakes. Now you'll see how it says 31 kilometers west of Raton, New Mexico? Okay, well, we're going to zoom in here. Technically, it's right across the state line. But when I show you what's there, I think it's going to make a little bit more sense why we're talking about Colorado. And you'll see the other 3.1 to the north up near Greeley. And northern Colorado is also a fracking operation. But let's just show you for your own remembrance, so you'll always remember this going forward when I show you the size of this operation. So first of all, we're zooming in, and I'll prove to you there's an oil well right there. It isn't just gas and fracking, but it's also oil, so this is proof the oil pumping operations aren't safe either. Every one of these little pads here has a different oil well or gas well on it. All right? So I just showed you 2 there as examples. Now take a look at how far it goes off in all directions. Every one of these little pads, and this is across miles and miles. Now, I got tired of marking these because of the earthquakes that struck there before. See, a 4.5 earthquake, August 23rd, 2016, for instance. And this is the state line right here. So the fracking operation doesn't pay attention to state lines. The government steps in, and this just goes on and on for miles. And I'm not joking, it really does. Every one of these aren't campsites, guys. Each one is an oil well or gas well, frac well, where they inject water down into the ground to fracture shale to release gas. So that's going down to the south, and then we go to the north and up in Colorado. Take a look at it. It even gets more densely populated with wells. Like they're just here's a frac well, for instance. See the storage tank and the that's for the wastewater. Okay, they'll inject what they call wastewater down into the ground, a way to dispose of toxic water and at the same time extract gas. So they like leave the wastewater down in there after they're done fracturing the shale. Okay, so 3.1. It's been weeks and weeks and weeks since we've seen any activity strike in Colorado, if not months. Now, let's go to the north. This takes us right up and see where it says Kersey, Colorado? Okay, well, this goes right up north of where I used to live, guys. I lived out in Thornton, which is North Denver. We had oil wells pretty much right next to our brand new house. It's kind of disturbing. So up north, we get just north of Greeley, and we zoom in on the area, and of course, going right down in on a massive fracking operation. This one's huge. Look at all the tanks. Here's our compressor stations. There's another one right there. Might even be able to find some along the road if we have street level view on here. But, I mean, the fracking operations here are just massive, guys. Each one a set of wells, pipelines connecting the whole bit. And it goes on for miles. And it really does. Look at this. I mean, look over here. So, I mean, it's no exaggeration when I talk about these fracking operations being huge. Now, you got to understand, they've drilled, each one of these spots is a spot where they've drilled down into the crust by several thousand feet to even a few kilometers. Okay? And what that's done is that's fractured the edge of the craton. The edge of the craton goes right along the Front Range, up through Montana, Wyoming, going to the west, northwest, up into BC. You see the yellow versus brown? Okay, that's the interior edge of the craton. It comes down to the south, goes along the Front Range on both sides, east and west, or it goes along the mountain range, the Rockies, on east and west, so the slope out to the west and across the east. Then down through New Mexico. We just showed you the fracking operations going down through New Mexico. We have a few volcanoes in here and a few Air Force bases and military ranges where they're not doing anything, but there are volcanoes at those locations. Then we get down to South Texas, and it picks back up with the fracking ops. Fracking in oil, all the way along the interior edge, the yellow versus green, going right back up into where? Our next earthquake, of course. Well, let's go look it up. Now, what caused all this, guys? Pressure from the West Coast. Told you about it a day ago. Told you guys to watch in the Midwest. Said it was going to increase. Why is it increasing? Pressure has been placed on the edge of the plate out to the West Coast. And it pushes this far, interior, to Oklahoma. Now, take a look at it. Now, this is past locations I've marked due to past earthquakes. And here is imagery from 2014 where they got the whole team out there. They've got the the drill going. They've got the pipelines laid out here. They'll connect all these guys. Each one of these little, what is that? What do you think, about 30 feet long? Probably. Yeah, about 30 foot long. They'll connect those into thousands of feet of pipeline that they use to drill down into the earth. So they're drilling right there in 2014. But take a look at it. Multiple other wells. Some of them are really old and rusty. Okay? Pipelines connecting all of them. And there it is. And here's one I didn't even bother marking. Another one out there. Look at that. That looks like a disposal yard, right? Okay, that's wonderful. So, 3.1, 3.1, 3.1. All across the Midwest at the fracking operations. Now look out to the West Coast. We warned the area in Northwest California. I was off by, well, about 75 miles, guys. We warned Gordo Escarpment going north. We had the cleft segment to Gordo Escarpment. East of and Gordo Escarpment goes right into Eureka, California. And I would dare say that's about 50 to 75 miles. So we are 50 to 75 miles off, and it's a 4.1. There it is. I mean, that's the noteworthy movement we were looking for. Whether or not I'm looking for an upper 4 and a lower 4 strikes, I'm sure my critics will all say, oh, that's a miss. Location spot on. Well, 50 miles off. 50 miles off and a half magnitude off. There you go. Topping out near 5 is what we were looking for, and we got a 4.1. Now, I'm going to go pull the station list on this because I'm, really actually very interested to see, is this 4.1 a massive downgrade? Is it, what is it? So, let's go see. Might be low, might be high. The only way to find out, go pull the details. Okay, all right. Well, we've got some stations showing real low, like 0. So that's not accurate, but that'll throw the count off. You include a 0 in there. You include a couple zeros saying no earthquake happened. Okay. Then we have 4s mixed in. 4s, 4s, 4s. 3s, 4s, 4.2. 4.8 detected. All right. That again, we were looking for upper 4. 5.4 detected. All right. I mean, this again, that goes well into the range we were looking for. More 4s, more 3s, more 4s, more 3s. That's just one way of looking at it here. Now let's go look at ML. Different way of measuring. 4.2, 4, 4, 4, 4.1, 4s, 3s, 4.4, 4.3, 3.8. Again, mostly 4s. 4.3, 4.4, mid-range 4. Okay, so another way we can go look at it is go over to 4.2 in Central Peru. Let's go over to Seismologist. Okay, and we'll go down the list here, see if we can find the 4s and see if we can make our own determination on what's going on here. Okay, Argentina, where's California? Northern California. Well, I guess I'm going to have to go back to page 2. There it is. Well, let's see what our station list shows here. Look at their station list on the Europeans. 5.4, 4, 4.4, going down to 3s, back to 4s, 4.8, back into a couple 3s, and then back to 4s. A few more 3s, throw us low. Again, back to 4s, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3s, 4, 4, 3s, and a couple 1s. Of course, you can throw those out. Let's go check the second reading. This is from the National Earthquake Information Center. Do we have magnitudes listed? No magnitudes listed from the NEIC. Okay. Okay, well, there it is. So, I mean, it's up to you guys to determine, was it the low ball that they went with since it was followed up with an aftershock, or was it the greater? Was it in the upper 4? I'm more leaning towards mid 4. Not the low they went with, but not the ultra high either. That it's a combination of the two, and it was mid 4. There it is. A mid 4 also explains 3s in the Midwest over the past several hours going into today. It also explains movement down in Southern California, down near the Gulf of California, south of the border, from Salton Sea. So I haven't even bothered checking the last 24 hours of earthquakes. Let's do that really quick too. Okay, and these are going to show us all the small microquakes in the area. All right, so as expected, the larger movement struck in Northwest California, and all the swarms last night gave us that clue. I mean, it was obvious that the Northwest California is getting ready to go. Glad we got the warning out, and it struck on land, guys. Look, what can I say? If I'm 50 to 75 miles off, 100 miles off, it's striking on land, and people are worried. Okay? So that's why I want to get the warnings out the way we do. If I'm 100 miles off, man, it makes a big difference. Or magnitude. Let's say I was a magnitude off and it hit up in a mid-5. Then all of a sudden everybody's in a panic mode, right? So if they were warned last night, they would at least, when they feel shaking today, they're like, oh, look, the earthquake's hit, and we were expecting that, okay? So, anyways, be aware of that. Now, secondly, look what happened today on the East Coast. Look at that. New Jersey struck, and Delaware struck. New Jersey. Hey. New Jersey, 4.4 kilometers deep. Why would we get activity in New Jersey? Oh, I don't know. Could it be all the 3s in the Midwest? 3s going down to 2s on the East Coast? We did warn the Northeast, did we not? And I did talk about New Jersey and mystery booms and rumbles, did I not? That's right. Of all the areas to name, go back 3 days, guys. Go back 3 days. I'll go find it if we need to. It's in one of my updates from 3 days ago, where I was talking about the East Coast and talking about mystery booms and rumbles, and I mentioned Rhode Island and New Jersey. And I said Rhode Island and New Jersey may see an increase and may see these new mystery booms and rumbles. Well, now we have earthquakes. Actual earthquakes detected, not just booms and rumbles. So, I mean, you know, I'm not patting myself on the back or anything. I just got to tell you guys, look, there's the East Coast getting hit by that 2.0 activity after 3s in the Midwest. Same day. This is all 24 hours. So this is the past 24 hours of earthquakes. All right, so let's get back over and turn on one more feed here and cover our International down to the south for Terremoto 3D for the people who are looking internationally. So let's show you. Here's what struck since last night. Now, Central America and South America, first of all, Eastern Caribbean struck by a 4.6. Why did a 4.6 strike in the Eastern Caribbean? Let's go back a few days. See the 4.9 down here in Central America? We talked about this, transferring to the east, maybe a little bit of a loss of momentum, and we would see an earthquake of similar size strike over to the east, over east of Puerto Rico in Dominica. And what happened? Well, 4.6 struck in St. John's, Guadalupe, which is just north of Dominica, and I mean just north of Dominica. So there it is, right? I mean, it's obvious. Pressure transfers to the east. Now down to the south, we have, like I told you last night, that there would be a new cluster of earthquakes developing out today up to the north at our bend. And look what's been happening as of today. We have a new earthquake striking up in central Peru. The pressure is transferring to the north. It has nowhere to go. It's causing a new deep earthquake up in Colombia by Nevado del Ruiz volcano and a new 5 over in Argentina. Somewhat deeper. So the 5 is about 100 kilometers deep. It's not deep enough to be down in the asthenosphere, the melted magma down below the plate, but that's down very close to the bottom of where the plate, the lithosphere, meets up with the asthenosphere. This means that the pressure is trying to find a way down, around, and underneath South America to get down here. And it's trying to again go all the way down to the South Sandwich Islands, which I talked about for the last several days, still has not been hit. And we always know it does get hit after this movement in South Central America, or Central South America. Sorry. And so when it hits down here, it'll be bigger, no doubt about it, because the pressure is trying to find a way down. It couldn't. It went up to the north. It's coming back down underneath, and it'll ultimately pop back up like a jack-in-the-box down here at the South Sandwich Islands with a greater earthquake. A combined total of the spring pressure that's built up, like a spring, like pulling a spring back. The pressure is being pulled up and pooled up in this area across South America and central Chile. That's why there's new eruptions happening. That's why there's deep earthquakes happening. And it's all coming from the pressure over here in the West Pacific. Speaking of pressure in the West Pacific, New Zealand, we have to go back a couple days. Take a look at it. A 5.0 struck to the north of New Zealand a couple days ago, and look what happened. Across down to the south, a little bit of loss of momentum, a 4.8. Again, we see pressure transferred down across New Zealand. New Zealand gets the leftovers off these deep earthquakes that are happening to the north in Fiji and Tonga. They're raised high off the globe. So the deep earthquakes put pressure upwards and outwards, and it goes and translates all the way down across New Zealand. So in New Zealand, the catcher's mitt position is catching most of your pressure. That's why the greater earthquakes are striking to the north. Whatever's left over bends down, goes around the plate. Let's go ahead and show you the GeoNet New Zealand earthquakes for today, and it's going to make a little bit more sense. The northern part of the island is catching the brunt of the pressure, obviously, as it transfers down to the south. Larger earthquakes strike to the north. Then we see a fanning out of pressure down across the fault zone, and whatever is left over strikes down to the south. And in this case, it was just 1s and 2s that went down the island today, and earlier we had the earthquake down to the south of the island, which they don't even have listed in the last 30 earthquakes striking. Okay? Do we have any other areas that are not reporting right now? I've got the British Geological Survey turned on. I just want to show you guys something here. See this? Okay. Now, they finally have some earthquakes listed down in southwest England. And I'm going to pull up the earthquake information on this. This comes from the BGS. See this? October 27, 2016, they have a 2.3. Now, this took forever for them to get it on the map. Now, this is right down near Cornwall. This is pretty much the exact spot that reported the 2.9. So what's going on? It took them forever to get it on the map, to not alert the public. So if you live in the UK and you're using the British Geologic Survey, understand that they're not I'm not trying to chastise them too hard, but that they're just not doing these things, posting these things in a timely manner. They may have been studying it, whatever, but it really would have helped if the day that it struck, if I could have gone to the British Geological Survey website and show you guys, as opposed to having to pull that seismologist information from the EMSC website, which this is now proof, again, one more time, that the seismologist page on the EMSC is the place to go to get our seismic information, because those earthquakes are coming on the map sometimes, but it takes either the agencies to approve them or politics, whatever. All right, so there it is. UK struck down to the south. Just wanted to show that to you. Now, also, see the spot between the UK and Scandinavia? 3.9 striking out there over the past month. All right, well, I don't know what date these are on, actually. Let me see. Hold on. November 3rd, a 3.9 out there. And let's see. Again, in November 3rd. So two 3.9s happening out there between England and Scandinavia. There's gas exploration going on out there, guys. So either drilling or there's actual platforms. I don't know if there are platforms at this location, but there are some nearby. So, large-scale fracking from platforms. That's pretty much gas extraction. Okay, so, and injection going on there too. So they have to inject to extract. They're not just drilling down in and siphoning off gas. They are actually injecting to get some of that. So, all said and done, what do we watch for? You guys know in Europe, you're watching for a 4.1 to strike down in central Italy. If we're on the west coast of the U.S., you know you were just struck this morning, and pressure is going to translate across the plate. It already is, and that's why the Midwest is being struck. Midwest, this could top out near 4.1. So Oklahoma, you got 1 magnitude less. You got lucky. But that's not going to be all she wrote. These earthquakes, there's 3. It's guys, you got to understand, it's about 1,000 miles across the area that was just moved in the Midwest. So if you take the total combined kilometers or miles, the square kilometers, miles, we're talking about the entire states of Colorado going down into New Mexico, east across Texas, the whole state of Oklahoma, and half the state of Kansas has just moved today in one fell swoop, which means there's going to be greater movement. And that explains why the East Coast moved up in New Jersey. Why did New Jersey get struck? Because pressure transfers to the east. And this new 4 is already pushing. So you can expect a swarm to increase in the Midwest. Additionally, Southern California, look, you're under the gun now. New swarm's going to kick up in Southern California, and it could get larger. It could be equal in size to the 4.1. Whether it's a swarm of dozens and dozens of 2s and 3s, or if it's a single 4, you're now primed as well. The pressure's going to transfer down the coast and over to the east, all the way to the East Coast. East Coast, you're in the mix this week. Why? You're already being struck by 2s. If it just goes 1 notch higher, it'll get everybody's attention. They'll be like, whoa, 3.0 on the East Coast, really rare. And you'll say, no, it actually happens at least once a month, but the professionals actually ignore the progression of earthquakes for some dogmatic rule in science reason, which, again, we don't believe in those things. So, much love to everybody. This is why I do what I do. And, just as expected, the pressure reached into Europe. Just as expected, the West Coast was struck. Just as expected, the Midwest was struck after that. Just as expected, Japan was hit in South and North Japan. So, have a plan. Be prepared. Don't be scared. Be prepared, guys. All right, so there's your update.